The story begins on a normal school day. As the teacher begins lessons, there's a sudden light that engulfs the entire classroom. Moments later, our protagonist Hiro finds herself in a dark place, so she moves to find the light, but soon discovers numerous spider hatchlings all around her. Her body has become that of a spider, so she starts whining and complaining, asking why she has to be reincarnated as a spider. When she notices the other spiders eating, she goes over to join them, but is disgusted by their cannibalism. The mother spider then tries to eat her, so she instantly runs for dear life. As she wanders around the spider's labyrinth, she soon discovers that she can acquire certain skills, so she uses her skill points to acquire an appraisal skill. She tries appraising a wall, thinking it might be special, but it just turns out to be an ordinary wall. Moving on, she tries looking for food. However, all the creatures she finds are above her level. As she wanders further, she finds a human footprint, so she runs to ask for help. Unfortunately, she finds a dead spider on her way. As she freaks out, she accidentally produces silk. Discovering she can make webs, she immediately makes a home for herself. As she marvels at her achievement, she collapses hungry, so she forces herself to eat the dead spider, which she soon discovers tastes horrible. After the meal, her stats increased and she earns some more skills called Kin Eater, Heretic Magic, and Taboo. As she rejoices on acquiring new skills, she finds that her web caught something. She goes to discover it is a lizard. The lizard attacks her using poison, which partially blinds her. However, she avoids the other attacks. She then decides to attack the spider, but she falls victim to its attack again. On the third try, she is able to evade its attacks accurately and eventually manages to devour it while still alive. In the city, a banquet is held where some students from prestigious families are accepted into the academy. The admitted students include some of the reincarnates, Shun and Keisha, who are greeted by Philimos, their former teacher, and Faye, who is now a dragon. Shun's sister Sui is a normal girl. She doesn't seem to like Philimos. Later, Philimos takes Shun and Keisha to meet their former classmates, Hugo and Yuri. During introductions, Keisha points out she is Ushima, who was formerly a boy, and Faye, who was once the beauty of the class, is teased for becoming a monster. In the past, Wakaba was bullied by Faye, but she didn't care much about anything back then. In class, Hugo meets with Shun. He inquires about his brother, the hero Julius, but he tells him Julius is not a reincarnate like them, although he is super strong. Faye complains that God must hate her for bullying Hiro in the past. When Oka comes in, she asks her if she has been able to find Hiro since she is the one gathering all the reincarnates, but she explains she hasn't. Shun assures her that Hiro is probably doing fine. Meanwhile, Hiro continues struggling to defeat monsters and level up in her spider form. This time, she is able to advance to a new form of Terratect. After leveling up, her body changes, and all her previous injuries have automatically been healed. As she explores, she finds that her web has caught another prey, but this time it's a human. He uses fire to escape and ends up burning her house. Hiro then begins expanding her house, making it more human-like, with sitting rooms and bedrooms. As she finishes, she tries devouring the egg the human left behind. However, none of her methods are able to break the egg. Soon, a group of humans arrive and set her new home on fire, so she runs for life. Discovering how pathetic she still is, she decides to get more battle experience. She manages to defeat a centipede monster, however. This makes the whole swarm chase after her in retaliation. She manages to outrun them by burning all her stamina. As she rests, she is alerted to danger. A level 9 snake attacks her, so she begins evading and attacking it with her web, which is all she has going for her. However, it tosses her against the wall, making her lose so much HP. In her fighting spirit, she attacks with her poison fangs, but this makes the snake go berserk. Eventually, her fang is able to poison it to death. After defeating the snake, she upgrades to a new level and gathered a whole lot of skills. She is also given some options to evolve into, so she weighs her options and decides to go for the small Terratect. After evolving, she wakes up feeling dizzy and hungry, so she helps herself to her victory prize. She notes that her appetite has become so large because devouring the whole monster hasn't satisfied her. Later, she uses her skill points to acquire 2 new skills, one called Thread Control, which she fantasizes would make her equal to Spider-Man, and a detection skill. As soon as her skills are activated, she begins using her web control to easily capture her prey. Next, she is pumped as she can now read her stats. She moves to search for more food, but she stops after encountering some humans. She appraises them to find their level higher than hers, so she flees. As the humans chase her, she encounters monsters on her path, so she tries her best to create her path through, with so much speed that she ends up falling down a cliff. At school, Yuri informs everyone of their magic training session in the woods. Hugo is hyped to show his worth, but the others think he is rather competitive. In the woods, Shun and Hugo's weapons are different, since they were reincarnated as princes of different nations. Shortly after, they are given wands enchanted with water magic to practice, so each student begins blasting spells at the designated target. After a while, Hugo gets bored using water magic, so he uses his fire magic to destroy the target. As his teacher scolds him for getting ahead of himself, they suddenly hear a strange roar, and with it comes a powerful attack. The teacher moves to counter it, but it disintegrates him easily. As the Earth Dragon appears, Hugo tries to show off by firing at it. However, his attacks are ineffective. He is hit by the beast, so it dawns on everyone that their death is close. Shun summons courage from his older brother and draws out his sword to attack. He is joined by his fellow reincarnates, and together, they begin attacking the beast in coordination. As the battle continues, Hugo arrives only to start shooting off random spells at everyone. As Shun saves him from being eaten, Faye steps in and devours the dragon, allowing Shun to easily finish it off. As the class cheers for him, Hugo gets pissed and leaves. As Hiro finds herself in the bottom level of the labyrinth, she comes across a mantis on a killing spree, so she quickly avoids it. However, she keeps running into bigger monsters, so she avoids them. She finally finds some snail monsters she can attack. As she munches on one, her HP falls instantly and her soul leaves her body, but she manages to pull it back. Next, she encounters some level 7 monster which she easily captures and defeats with her fangs. After feeding, she tries her new skill which lets her synthesize poison. As she moves on, she finds a lone dancing monkey that soon attacks her. It's so fast, but she is able to evade its attacks. She uses her webs on it, but because of its size, it shakes her off and ends up tangling itself on her web. She kills it and feeds on all of its flesh in a short while. As she rests, she is awakened by a group of angry monkeys seeking revenge. They begin throwing rocks at her as they climb up to meet her. She then uses her webs to defend against them, but they are incredibly persistent. As she thinks of a way out, she loses focus, which causes her a leg, although she revenges by poisoning it. In that pain, she luckily levels up her pain threshold skill. This heals her damaged leg, so she launches a full-scale web attack on the monkeys and ends up killing a lot of them. However, she is attacked by a new set of evolved monkeys who can throw bigger rocks. With her poison venom, she manages to attack some of the evolved monkeys until the last one. It sneak attacks her, biting off half of her abdomen. As she falls, she uses her last strength to defeat the monster with poison. Luckily, she levels up before hitting the ground. Hiro finds herself in the middle magma level. Here, she can't use her web because it burns instantly. The monster here also shoots fire from their mouths, so she makes a run for her life. She goes back to the bottom level to evolve her Terratect form. Admin then gives her a list of skills to acquire with her skill points. After observing the long list, she goes for Pride skill. This skill boosts all her other stats and unlocks abysmal magic. At the academy, Faye has gotten bigger and Shun notes that her status is bizarre. In class, everyone greets Shun since he saved them from the Earth Dragon. As they sit, Yuri comes to tell the group about God, whose voice can be heard after one levels up. She tells Shun to report anyone with the skill called Taboo, since it goes against God's will. Faye becomes uncomfortable after hearing the penalty for having a taboo skill is death. At the labyrinth, Hiro plans on how to defeat the monsters and then survive in the magma layer. She finally finds a skill to let her use magic, but decides it might not be convenient for her, so she moves in search of her next meal. However, she encounters another Earth Dragon who chases her until she finds herself back in the middle layer. Here, she faces off with the magma seahorse again. After it runs out of MP, it comes out of the lava to chase her. Hiro realizes she has a chance on dry land, so she manages to use her fang to defeat it. As she feeds on the seahorse, a bigger catfish monster appears, so Hiro quickly hides, seeing that she is outclassed. However, she finds a second one waiting in ambush for her. She is cornered by the two catfish, so she uses her web to close their mouths. As they attack again, she then decides to feed one poison, which turns out to be very effective as one collapses. This makes the other one retreat. As she feeds on her prize, she sheds tears of joy as this is her first meal that tastes good. As Julius and his party defeat monsters in the labyrinth, he is told that they have to go further into the middle layer where they'd find their quarry. Hiro continues searching for another sweet catfish but couldn't find it. However, she finds an eel instead. Appraisal immediately informs her it's in a different league than hers. It attacks her, but she is able to evade thanks to her new foresight skill. She continues fighting for her life as her HP and MP drops gradually. She finally finds an opportunity to spew poison in his mouth, thus defeating him. As she moves to eat it, it suddenly expends its SP for HP, thus recovering instantly and also leveling up. Noticing it has leveled up, she quickly barrages it with attacks before it recovers. After the battle, she levels up her skill again and acquires the option to evolve. So she uses the eel's corpse to protect herself since evolving leaves her defenseless. After evolving, her form has changed into a Zoe-L Pterodactyl with super sharp sides. So, she uses it to help herself dice the eel meat which she eats. After feeding, her leveling up lets her gain a parallel mind which will allow her to multitask, so she can fight more effectively. On the other side, Julius is hailed for being better at magic than the saint herself. However, they are interrupted by enemies, greater pterodactyls which turn out to be 3 in number. And behind them is the Nightmare's vestige. It immediately attacks the saint, but Julius saves her in time. The others try to stall it as Julius rushes to defeat the other pterodactyls using a combination of swords and magic. They are focused on the vestige which disperses all their attacks. On seeing this, Julius uses a powerful light attack. However, it doesn't go down. Instead, it suddenly starts trembling, so the party takes advantage of its situation and defeats it. Meanwhile, Hero has acquired a new skill, Cursed Evil Eye. She goes to test it on a monster. As she finds the frog, the eye attack hits it, slowly eating up its entire stats until it dies. At the academy, Shun asks about the other reincarnates. So Oka explains that out of the 27 people in the classroom, 11 are secured in her elven village, while 4 of them are dead already. She explains that the rest are unaccounted for. Later, they are summoned to take part in an extracurricular activity where they would only encounter weak monsters. They arrive at the campground, so Shun helps a teammate set up camp. He praises Shun for his accomplishments, saying he respects him. Meanwhile, Hugo happens to be pissed by their conversation. Later, Shun rushes to aid the teammate, but on getting there, he is being attacked by Hugo. Afterward, Hugo confronts Shun, saying he can't have someone like him around. Shun appraises him and discovers his skills are above his. Hugo attacks him in earnest, so the battle begins. As they fight, Hugo reveals he plans on unleashing monsters on all the students, and then he will eventually return to the city with the story that he managed to defeat the monsters. Hugo attacks again. This time, he completely overwhelms Shun. Before he can deal a fatal blow, Oka intervenes. She reveals that his plan fell through. As punishment, Oka uses her special skill to reset all his stats to the lowest. Later at home, as Hugo vows revenge on Oka, he is approached by a suspicious girl who offers to aid his plan. Several days later, Shun and the others note that Hugo has been absent from school since the incident. Although he wasn't publicly punished for his crime since he is a prince, the group discusses how his character became so terrible. Back at the labyrinth, Hero is having a blast trying to move on from the fact that she is in a world controlled by a human. She and her parallel mind scan through skills available for magic. After selecting, she tries to use magic, but it turns out she can't handle it yet. To remedy the situation, the admin gives her a third parallel mind who will be responsible for utilizing magic. As she celebrates, there's a serious tremor, so she goes to look, only to discover a big hole. She goes down to take a closer look. However, a high-ranking fire dragon pops out of the lava. Although it is damaged, it still attacks her. She is seriously outclassed, but she decides to bring the fight to it. She begins by using her magic attacks on it, and then she focuses on evading its pretty deadly attacks. She tries hard to avoid its lethal fire attacks by swinging on her web. As the battle continues, she finds herself in a pinch, using thought acceleration skill. She is able to produce a massive amount of poison which she concentrates and sends into its mouth. However, it is smart enough to counter the poisonous attack also. On hearing of his arrival, Shun runs to welcome his brother, the hero. Here, Julius informs him that demons are making a move, so he is heading to the Empire. Seeing Faye bigger than usual, he tells Shun of her origins. Her egg and his scarf, which was made from Pterodactyl silk, were both gotten from the labyrinth 15 years ago. Before he could finish his story, Julius is told to prepare to take off with his party. At the labyrinth, the fierce battle with the dragon continues. Hero uses her poison attacks and rot skill in succession to score a big one on the beast, although the attack costs her a leg. However, the dragon comes back up shortly. Realizing her HP is down to 1%, she orders her parallel minds to activate abysmal magic. With this, she calls forth Hell's Gate. This attack sucks in everything around it, but the dragon manages to tank it. Luckily, it drains its stats to the bare minimum. With both of them at their limit, the dragon takes initiative and attacks head-on, but Hero is smart enough to use her web to immobilize it before striking the final blow. She immediately levels up her form and earns the title of Dragon Slayer. As she drags the dragon away to feed on it, an admin notices the demise of a dragon, so he decides to go take a look at the perpetrator himself. She begins digging in on the monster, but she then notices that someone incredibly powerful is approaching through a warp gate. The admin arrives at the scene, but as he tries to communicate, she can't understand his language. She tries to explain too, but there's a language barrier. At that moment, a smartphone appears out of nowhere. She introduces herself as Admin D to the other administrator, so he picks up the phone and negotiates with her, after which he leaves immediately. Admin D tells Hiro she has been watching her struggle for survival and it amuses her, so she helps her sometimes. She doesn't answer further questions before disappearing. Meanwhile, at the Demon Lord's castle, a meeting begins. Balto, the moderator, asks each leader for their war reports, so each corps leader begins giving their reports on war preparation. However, the third corps leader is skeptical about war, so the Demon Lord suggests his unit be sacrificed for his insolence. Next, Blow states his dissatisfaction with the new Demon Lord. However, Dured picks a fight all in the name of loyalty. Before they cross swords, they are suddenly impaled by the Demon Lord's web. Balto tells them she has enough power to kill everyone if she chooses. Later, in class, Shun suddenly receives a message that he has met the conditions of becoming the new hero. He freezes because this only means one thing: Julius is dead. Meanwhile, Hiro and her parallel minds try to sort out Admin D's relationship with this world. However, all of their opinions prove baseless as she left almost nothing to work with. At the castle, the king, and everyone including Leston, Shun's older brother, are devastated to hear the news of Julius' death. However, Siles, his other brother, has no time for grief. The king orders that they keep his hero status a secret for now. Just then, a messenger enters to inform them that the demon army has conquered 8 fortresses already. He further reports that the only fortress left standing is that of Master Ronet. After the report, the king also tells his sons to keep Julius's death a secret. He then orders Shun to leave the academy and begin training as a hero in secret. At Master Ronet's fort, his men praise his power, noting they only survived thanks to him. However, Master Ronet tells a story dating back 15 years ago in the labyrinth. Here, he and his party were on an exploration. Although he goofed around, Buirimus reminds him that they are here to investigate a new monster that drove the other natives out of the labyrinth. As they arrive at a spot it was sighted, a party member suddenly gets stuck, so Ronet orders them to cast light in his direction. Here they notice a lot of threads, but the threads are so strong that he has to burn them with fire. Shortly after destroying its home, the Pterodect arrives. On seeing it, Ronet is shocked by its aura. The monster jumps down and uses appraisal on him. Ronet, on realizing this, tries to do the same. He soon finds that the Pterodect has so many overwhelming stats and skills. He starts daydreaming of its awesomeness, so Buirimus drags him away. The other soldiers try to stall, but they are defeated easily. So, Buirimus quickly smacks him back to reality. After regaining his senses, he begins preparation for a teleportation circle while the others stall for time. Buirimus summons his beasts, who begin attacking individually, but the Pterodect blocks their attacks and eventually uses their skill for himself. It continues to decimate the entire party, eventually cutting off Ronet's arm. However, they succeed in teleporting back to their base. In the present, Ronet informs his comrade that some beings are just so powerful that humans don't stand a chance against them. Shun begins his training alone with just Faye around. She tells him Hyrance, who is the only survivor of the hero's party, would be arriving soon, so he'll be able to explain what happened to Julius. Faye suggests that they both form a pact, but Shun disagrees, saying he needs to treat her like an equal. However, after weighing the advantage, he consents to it and they form a pact. After the pact, she turns back into an egg to begin evolving. At the labyrinth, Hiro is introduced to a new set of knowledge after her taboo skill hit level 10. With the help of her parallel minds, she learns about the secret of the world as well as the fact that the world is heading to doom. So she decides to keep working on herself to become strong enough to stop that from happening. To do that, slaying the strongest monster in the labyrinth, Araba, comes to mind. Although she freaks out because of the trauma she once had from just being in the presence of Araba. So she heads to the lower level to scoop Araba. But instead, she finds a giant serpent with top-level stats. The snake exits only to begin its battle with Araba. Hiro can't help but watch the brutal battle between the two monstrosities. They showed a different level of violence that completely overwhelms her. With Araba easily defeating the serpent, it dawns on Hiro that defeating Araba is no mere feat. At the castle, Hyrance arrives. He apologizes to Shun, saying he is the reason Julius died. He explains by showing him a phoenix feather which was supposed to revive the hero when severely wounded. However, Julius gave him the feather instead, so Shun tells him he has nothing to apologize about. Hyrance narrates that after he defeated the demon army, a girl appeared from nowhere, and in a blink of an eye, everyone around him was dead from her rod attack, which turned everything to dust. After his story, Hyrance swears loyalty to him. Hiro continues to level up in order to defeat Araba. She encounters 2 earth dragons, so she marks them so she can fight them separately at another time. She moves to prepare a suitable battlefield that will give her as much advantage against Araba, but a swarm of hornets has built a hive in her ideal location. They begin attacking her one after the other, so she decides to annihilate the entire hive. Using her poison spears, she kills all the hornets and destroys the hive, after which she awaits Araba to battle him. The battle between her and Araba begins. Among her arsenal is the dimensional move, which lets her move freely in the space she drove the hornets from. Her parallel mines begin launching magic attacks at him, but his HP keeps regenerating. Next, they have a battle of magic attacks only. Araba is on an attacking spree while Hero tries her best to evade. Their intense battle keeps up until Araba dives at her. However, she has a trap ready to capture him. She immediately uses her phantom pain magic on him, so he tangles himself more in the web. She uses all sorts of magic, but he blasts himself out with his breath. Although taking damage, he immediately uses his skill point to pick up a new skill to nullify the damage he caused himself. Araba's new form comes with a new Inferno attack that spans a wide range. She keeps dodging his attacks until she finds herself trapped in the ceiling, so she begins heading down into the flames while taking damage. As she heads up, Araba lands a direct attack spell on her, thus draining her HP. As he moves to finish her off, she uses her Annihilating Evil Eye to also land an attack. She loses her eye for it, along with her web, making Pelvis stuck in his earth attack. She begins falling again, knowing she's dead meat once she hits the floor. She makes a risky move into the fire to be able to head back up. However, her teleportation is perceived by Araba and he gets her. In her struggle, she uses a rod attack to free herself. On the verge of dying, her life flashes before her, so she summons courage and uses another Annihilating Evil Eye. So, they both fall to the ground half dead. She begins healing herself while she observes Araba's stats. Finally, she moves to deal the final blow. However, Araba rises in surrender despite having almost no stamina left, so she gets dissatisfied that he has given up. He then disappears completely, while Hero begins leveling up from the results of the battle. Having defeated her arch-enemy, she looks for the exit, which she finds, and begins heading for the outside world. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.